Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that, overnight, Earth was no longer a sphere but a completely flat disk, and it would stay that way for exactly 24 hours before returning to normal. At first glance, you might shrug and think nothing has changed, but the reality would be chaotic, surreal, and full of consequences. Gravity, for starters, will become completely unpredictable. On a spherical planet, gravity pulls everything toward the center, which is why we feel stable on the surface. On a flat Earth, gravity wouldn't know what to do. For those near the center of the disk, things would feel somewhat normal, but the further you traveled toward the edge, the more sideways gravity would become, pulling you at strange angles. People near the edges of continents might feel as if they were walking uphill, straining to stand upright as their bodies tilted toward the middle. Oceans would behave even more bizarrely. Instead of staying contained in neat basins, water would flow toward the center of the flat Earth, forming a massive superocean in the middle of the disk. Coastal cities would either flood instantly if they were close to the center, or dry up completely if they were near the rim. Imagine walking along the beach one moment and suddenly realizing the ocean has drained away, exposing endless stretches of seabed, while on the other side of the world, skyscrapers are swallowed by walls of rushing water. Weather systems would spiral out of control. On a round planet, air and ocean currents are balanced by rotation and curvature. On a flat Earth, those forces would collapse, creating colossal storms. Winds would race unchecked across the disk, sweeping dust, debris, and even people into violent tempests. The concept of climate zones would vanish. Tropical jungles could suddenly freeze, deserts might experience torrential rain, and entire ecosystems would collapse in confusion. Time itself will be thrown into disarray. Our spherical Earth gives us day and night as it spins on its axis. A flat Earth would no longer rotate the same way, so sunlight would stretch oddly across the disk. Half the world might be plunged into permanent day, the other half into endless night, with a chaotic band of twilight stuck in between. Imagine trying to sleep in blinding sunshine while your friends on the other side of the disk shiver in eternal darkness. Human society would grind to a halt within hours. Air travel will be nearly impossible because planes rely on stable gravitational pull and predictable air currents. On a flat Earth, a jet might suddenly lurch sideways as gravity shifts beneath it, sending it spiraling uncontrollably. Ships would be stranded as oceans drained or surged unpredictably, and global trade would collapse. Communication networks would be damaged too. Satellites orbit Earth because it's round. Without that, they would fall out of the sky. Suddenly, GPS, television, internet, and phone signals would vanish, leaving billions disconnected. Panic would spread as people lost their bearings in this strange new reality. But not everyone would suffer. For centuries, flat Earth conspiracy theorists claimed the world was round. For one day, they would feel vindicated, shouting, "We told you so," from rooftops. But their joy would be short-lived as the terrifying consequences of a flat planet unfolded before their eyes. Animals would be just as confused as humans. Migratory birds that rely on Earth's magnetic field and curvature would lose their way, swarming chaotically in the sky. Whales and dolphins might beach themselves as oceans shift, while insects and land animals wander aimlessly, their instincts scrambled. Agriculture would collapse almost instantly. Crops need stable sunlight cycles, temperatures, and weather patterns, but on flat Earth Day 1, farms would either burn under endless sun or freeze in shadow. Supermarkets would be stripped bare as people scrambled to hoard food and water, knowing survival would be uncertain if the situation lasted longer than a day. And yet, humanity is incredibly adaptable. Within hours, scientists would rush to understand what happened, building models to predict gravitational shifts, weather chaos, and sunlight patterns. Engineers might invent new ways to store energy, grow food indoors, or protect communities from collapsing ecosystems. But for ordinary people, the experience would feel like living in a nightmare dreamscape. Walking outside would be disorienting as buildings tilted at odd angles relative to gravity. Rivers would flow in unnatural directions, sometimes upward, sometimes sideways. The horizon, normally curved and familiar, would stretch endlessly in all directions, flat and strange, with no comforting reminder of a round globe beneath your feet. Children might laugh at first, seeing the world turn into a surreal playground, but even they would quickly sense the danger. Parents would clutch their kids tightly, worried that a sudden gravitational shift could sweep them away. Imagine standing at the edge of the disk, staring into the infinite void of space. On a round Earth, space is far above us, but on a flat Earth, The horizon would feel like the edge of existence itself, a terrifying drop into nothingness. Some might be drawn to it, curious to peer over, while others would recoil in fear, praying for the planet to return to its natural shape. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the 24 hours would end. The disk would slowly curve back into a sphere, oceans rushing back into place, satellites regaining orbit, and gravity realigning with the core. Cities would be drenched, landscapes scarred, and countless lives disrupted. The world would breathe a sigh of relief as everything returned to normal, but humanity would never forget the day Earth went flat. Scientists would study the event endlessly, philosophers would write about its meaning, and future generations would hear stories about the surreal day when reality itself bent into something impossible. For 24 hours, Earth was flat, and the world was reminded how fragile, strange, and miraculous our planet truly is.